I still remember the exact moment I saw their names typed neatly on the contract: Robert and Linda Green. My parents. Right there, printed in bold ink across the same document that carried mine, binding us together in a way none of us could have imagined years ago. The irony almost made me laugh, but instead, I pressed my lips together and adjusted the cuff of my silk blouse, the cool fabric brushing against my skin like a reminder to keep composed. Outside my office window, the Manhattan skyline shimmered under the morning sun. My floor-to-ceiling glass reflected a version of me my parents never believed could exist. Calm, professional, powerful. If they had walked in at that moment, they wouldn't have recognized me. Not the daughter they used to lecture, not the girl they once pitied. My phone buzzed against the polished oak desk, screen lighting up with a name that used to tighten my chest: Mom. For a moment, I just stared at it, the vibration echoing louder than the city noise below. She rarely called me directly, not unless something was urgent. A wry smile tugged at my lips. Urgent. Of course. Now that their future depended on the very people they used to mock, urgency had suddenly become a family trait. I exhaled slowly, pen balanced between my fingers, the contract heavy with history. Somewhere between pride and ache, I felt it again, that quiet, ironic resilience. They had spent years mocking my friends. Now those same friends were sitting across the table, waiting to finalize the deal that would make us all partners. It wasn't always glass offices and partnership contracts. There was a time when the very word business felt like a forbidden dream in my parents' house. I was 19, back home in our modest Virginia suburb, sitting at the kitchen table with my best friends, Ethan, Maya, and Jordan. We were hunched over a beat-up spiral notebook, sketching logos and scribbling half-baked ideas for a startup no one else believed in. To us, that notebook was treasure. To my parents, it was a joke. Seriously, Claire? My dad leaned against the counter, arms crossed, his tone dripping with disapproval. You waste hours with these kids and their silly fantasies. You think doodling in some notebook will pay your rent one day. Mom's voice chimed in, sharper than his. Sweetheart, look at them. Ethan can't even hold a steady job. Maya changes majors every semester, and Jordan, don't get me started. You're smarter than this. You don't need to chain yourself to their failures. The words cut deeper than they probably intended. My friends stared at the table, their faces flushing under the weight of ridicule. I remember my hand trembling as I tried to shield the notebook, as if protecting something fragile and precious from being trampled. My throat ached, but no words came out. That night, I lay awake replaying it all. The mocking laughter, the way Mom shook her head like I was already lost. Shame burned hot in my chest, tangled with something else: defiance. For the first time, I felt the sharp edge of choosing between their approval and my own conviction. 2 weeks later, on my birthday, Maya handed me a bracelet, just a simple silver chain with a small charm shaped like a key. A reminder, she whispered, pressing it into my palm. We'll unlock doors together, no matter how many people slam them shut. I wore it every day after that. The final blow came during another dinner. Dad declared, if you keep chasing this nonsense with them, don't expect us to bail you out when you fail. His words hung like a verdict. I set down my fork, hands no longer shaking. Good, I said quietly, because I'm not asking you to. The silence that followed was deafening. My parents stared at me like they didn't recognize their own daughter. But for the first time, I recognized myself. That night, I packed my laptop, the notebook, and that little silver bracelet. I left with my friends, stepping into a future that terrified me, but at least it was mine. The first year away from home was brutal. We had nothing but stubbornness, a second-hand laptop, and the dreams we had scribbled in that battered notebook. Ethan slept on a pull-out couch. Maya and I shared a one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, and Jordan practically lived at the public library, soaking up everything he could about coding. We scraped by. Days blurred into nights filled with ramen cups, half-broken coffee makers, and the constant hum of exhaustion. I took shifts at a bookstore just to cover rent, sneaking in design sketches during slow hours. Maya waitressed at a diner, sometimes coming home with sore feet but a fire in her eyes. Ethan juggled delivery jobs. And Jordan, God bless him, coded until his fingers cramped. There were moments when I almost gave up. Like the time we pitched our idea for a creative marketplace app to an angel investor, only for him to chuckle and say, "Cute hobby. Call me when you're serious." I went to the restroom afterward, locked myself in a stall, and sobbed quietly, mascara smudging. But when I came back out, my friends didn't pity me. They just handed me coffee and said, "Back to the drawing board." Then came Mrs. Patel, a mentor I never expected. She owned a small boutique where I sometimes sketched logos for her window displays. One evening, she noticed the notebook I always carried. "You treat this like scripture," she said with a kind smile. "Show me." I hesitated, then flipped it open. She studied our designs, our rough wireframes, our dreams. Instead of laughing, she leaned forward. "You have something here, but you need discipline. A roadmap." She spent months guiding us, teaching us the language of business plans, market research, investor decks. She wasn't rich, but she invested belief, and that was wealth enough. Our first win was small. A boutique jewelry maker paid us to design their e-commerce site. The check wasn't big, but when we deposited it, it felt like gold. We celebrated with dollar pizza slices, laughing so hard people on the street stared. From there, the pieces began to fit. One client led to another. Maya became a genius at branding, Ethan mastered logistics, Jordan built sleek, functional websites, and I thrived in pitching our vision. Together, we were a force, unpolished, underfunded, but unstoppable. Still, I kept everything from my parents. When they called, I lied. "I'm doing fine, just working at the bookstore." I downplayed every win, every late-night breakthrough, because I wasn't ready to hear, "It's just luck. It won't last." But secretly, it was lasting. 2 years later, our app launched. It connected small creators to buyers who valued authenticity. Within 6 months, we hit profitability. Within a year, we were making 6 figures. My parents thought I was just a sales assistant at some local shop. They had no idea their daughter was co-founder of a rising startup. I remember one night, staring at that silver bracelet as I signed our first major investor deal. The little key charm glinted under the lamplight, and I thought about Maya's words, "We'll unlock doors together." She was right. We had unlocked more than doors, we had built them. The day my parents finally agreed to meet me in New York, I knew it wasn't just about catching up. Their voices over the phone had been unusually careful, almost polite. They said they wanted to see how I was doing, but I heard the undercurrent. Rumors of our company's rapid growth had started spreading, and for the first time in years, they were curious. I had arranged for them to come directly to our office. When the elevator doors slid open on the 27th floor, they stepped out hesitantly. My mother's eyes widened at the sleek marble foyer, the modern art installation stretching across the lobby wall. My father's jaw tightened as he glanced at the receptionist's desk where our company's logo gleamed in brushed gold. "Welcome," I said softly, walking toward them. My heels clicked against the polished floor, the silk of my emerald blouse flowing with every step. I watched their expressions carefully, shock, confusion, a trace of pride they tried to swallow. "Claire," my mother began, almost breathless. This is where you work?" "No," I corrected gently, a smile tugging at my lips. "This is where I lead." I guided them through the glass doors into the main office. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the space in natural light. Desks buzzed with designers, developers, and marketing leads, all people who believed in the dream we once scribbled in a notebook. On one wall hung our first framed magazine feature, "4 Friends Revolutionize Online Marketplaces." And right beneath that photo were the faces they once mocked, Ethan with his easy grin, Maya with her fierce determination, Jordan in his sharp suit. Each of them was there, standing tall, waiting for me. I saw my parents freeze, recognition dawning on their faces. "You remember them, don't you?" I asked lightly, though my voice carried weight. "The friends you once said would drag me down? The ones you laughed at over dinner tables?" Neither of them answered. We led them into the conference room, a long oak table gleaming under pendant lights. Contracts were stacked neatly in front of each chair. Their names, Robert Greene, Linda Greene, printed on the signature lines. My father finally spoke, his voice low. Claire, this company. It's yours? Ours. I corrected again, gesturing toward my friends. We built it together. Brick by brick, setback by setback. Every time someone told us no, we made it a reason to fight harder. And now I spread the contract toward them. Now it's thriving. The silence was heavy, but not empty. It was full of disbelief, of words they couldn't swallow fast enough. My mother pressed a hand to her chest. All this time we thought, her voice trailed. You thought we were wasting time. I finished for her. You thought they weren't good enough. That I wasn't making the right choices. But look around. They did. Their eyes lingered on the city skylines stretching behind me, the awards lined up along the shelf, the photographs of us at product launches, ribbon cuttings, investor galas. Every piece of it contradicted their years of doubt. I leaned forward, resting my palms on the table, steady and unshaken. This is what your daughter built with the very people you mocked. And today, you're here because we're considering letting you join us, not the other way around. My words hung in the air like thunder. For once, my father had no retort. My mother blinked quickly, as if fighting tears. The shift in power was undeniable, and I savored the silence, the sweet, hard-earned silence of being seen. For a long moment, no one spoke. My parents sat stiffly at the polished oak table, their eyes darting between my friends and me, as if still trying to process the impossible. Finally, my father cleared his throat. Claire, this company is remarkable. We had no idea. If there's an opportunity for us to support you now, financially, strategically, we'd be honored. The irony wasn't lost on me. Once, they mocked Ethan for being lazy, Maya for being indecisive, and Jordan for being unreliable. Now they were asking for a seat at the table those same friends had built with their blood and sweat. I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands. My voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the steel in it. Support doesn't come for free anymore. If you want to be part of this, there are conditions. My mother blinked. Conditions? Yes. I met her eyes steadily. First, respect. That means no more dismissing Ethan as a failure or Maya as directionless or Jordan as a lost cause. These people are not just my friends, they're my partners, my family, in every way that counts. You treat them with the dignity they've always deserved, or there is no deal. Ethan glanced at me with quiet gratitude. Maya's chin lifted proudly. Jordan's lips pressed into the faintest smile. Second, I continued, contribution. This is not a vanity project for you to meddle in. If you join, you bring real value. That could mean using your networks, offering expertise, but it cannot mean control. This company doesn't need more doubt or condescension. It needs belief. My father's mouth tightened, but he didn't argue. And third, I said, my tone softening but firm, growth. Not just for the company, for you. I need to know you're capable of change. That means letting go of toxic judgments, of mocking the very people who lift others up. It means listening more than talking. Silence filled the room again, but this time it wasn't sharp. It was contemplative. My mother's eyes glistened. She nodded faintly, as if the weight of years of criticism was finally pressing down on her. Claire, she whispered, voice trembling. We were wrong. The admission hit me harder than I expected. For years, I had carried the ache of being underestimated, the sting of being told my friends weren't good enough. Hearing those words now felt like salve on an old wound, too late to erase the scar, but enough to ease the pain. I straightened, my tone softening. I don't want revenge. I don't want apologies repeated like empty words. I want action. If you can honor these conditions, then yes, you can be part of what we've built. But on our terms, not yours. For the first time in my life, I saw my father hesitate. Truly hesitate. His pride, once unshakable, cracked just enough for humility to slip through. Understood, he said finally, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. My mother reached across the table, fingertips brushing the contract. "We'll prove it," she said. "We'll earn it." And for the first time, I believed she meant it. The weeks that followed were quieter than I expected. My parents didn't rush into decisions, didn't demand control, didn't try to bulldoze their way through the company. Instead, they began showing up in ways I hadn't seen before. Dad used his decades of contacts to introduce us to suppliers we'd been chasing for years. He didn't dictate terms. He simply opened doors, then stepped back. Mom, who had once scoffed at Maya's indecision, now sat patiently in branding meetings, listening as Maya laid out strategies with the precision of a surgeon. Sometimes I'd catch her watching Maya with a kind of awe, as if finally seeing the brilliance she had missed. It wasn't instant transformation, but it was effort. Real effort. And effort mattered. One late evening, after the office had emptied, I sat at my desk staring at the skyline. My bracelet, the one Maya had given me all those years ago, rested on the desk beside a new object. The signed contract, my parents' names inked right beneath mine. I picked up the bracelet, running my thumb over the tiny silver key. My reflection in the window caught my gaze, a woman who had once been dismissed, belittled, mocked. A woman who had carried the sting of her parents' disapproval for years. And yet here I was, stronger, not in spite of that pain, but because of it. I thought back to the night I packed my things and walked out, heart racing, tears burning. If I could whisper to that younger version of me now, I'd tell her, "Hold on. The road is brutal, but it leads somewhere worth going." The office door creaked open, and Mom peeked in. She didn't say much, just placed a coffee cup on my desk, the way she used to when I studied late in high school. Her eyes lingered on the bracelet in my hand. "That's beautiful," she murmured. "Where did you get it?" I smiled faintly, slipping it back on my wrist. "A gift from someone you once underestimated." She didn't argue. She just nodded, quietly acknowledging more than her words could. As she left, I leaned back in my chair, the city glowing beneath me, the bracelet warm against my skin. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because I no longer needed their validation. My voice, steady and sure, echoed in my mind, the way it would one day in someone else's story, told out loud. The friends they once mocked built my world, and now, they're the ones my parents call partners.